Good afternoon, friends. This is the video where we're going to talk about the Antichrist. And as a matter of fact, let me get my notes. So what we're going to do here is basically we're just going to go over some facts about the Antichrist. Some facts that we can pull out of Scripture. Now, I do have a document with all of my Antichrist notes, and I actually have 3 documents for this video, and I will give you a link to those in the description below the video. And so I have the scriptures listed, and you can go in and read them, but to shorten this a little bit, I am just going to read the bullet points I have pulled out of these scriptures, and the facts that we get from that, just so we have a little bit of information on what the Antichrist is going to be like. And the word Antichrist only appears 4 times, and all of those times are in John's letters. Paul also refers to the Antichrist, but he calls him the man of lawlessness or the son of destruction. In Revelations, the Antichrist is referred to as the beast at times. So most of the times he is referred to as, a couple different things. Now, one more thing I want to say is that it is popular today for people to believe and to say that they do not believe the Antichrist is a man, that they believe it is a system, like a world system, like maybe a conglomerate of evil, powerful men or corporations. And I believe that those things are probably involved in the one world government that the Bible tells us about. But the Bible speaks as if the Antichrist is a man. And and I think it refers to him as a him. So I believe it's a man. So I'm going to go through the bullet points on what we learn from the passages that are listed. And those are 4 passages in John's letters. 1 John 2:18, 1 John 2:22, 1 John 4:3, 2 John verse 7, and then in 2 Thessalonians 2:13, in verses 3 and 4, 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 8, 9, and 10. So, and we're not going to talk about the things that concern the tribulation and things like that. We'll get to that later. So today we're just talking about characteristics and behavior of the coming Antichrist. So, in John's letters, he tells us that the Antichrist will deny that Jesus is the Messiah. He will deny that he is the Son of God and that he is a liar. He also tells us that he is a deceiver and will lead people astray. In 2 Thessalonians, it tells us that he is destined for destruction, that he will set himself up in the 3rd temple that's going to be built in Jerusalem, and he will proclaim himself to be God. It also never tells us that he will be considered as a Messiah by the Jewish people. That is a popular thought that a lot of people believe, but I have found it nowhere in the Bible. So that means that is something that someone has come up with that's not scriptural. It tells us he will eventually be destroyed by the Lord. It tells us that he will be under the power of Satan and he will perform signs and wonders. And I believe in another place, I'm not sure exactly where it's at, it tells us that Satan will actually enter him, and that's when things start getting really bad. That's when his behavior really changes. I believe up until then that he probably is basically just a man who is consumed with power and possibly war. Let's see. Let's go down to the Old Testament. We're going to be looking at the book of Daniel. Now, Daniel had multiple visions, and these visions prophesied a lot of things to happen. It foretold who would take over empires and empires after that, and it all came to pass, 100% accurate. But we're just going to look at the information about the empire of the last day that Daniel saw. So Daniel saw that the beast, in the vision, he saw a beast, and he said the beast was exceedingly terrifying, and that the little horn of the beast made war with the holy ones, and we assume those are, by holy ones, that means with God's people, his chosen people, with Israel, and I would assume that includes Christians. The Bible says that when we follow Jesus, we become part of the family. We become as the seed of Abraham. And I believe that includes us, that anytime it says the holy ones or the chosen ones, that means the family of God. And it says that he was very powerful against them. It said that this beast will be a kingdom on the earth. So the Antichrist, it's not just one evil man alone. It's an evil man with a powerful army behind him. It says he destroys, let me see. Okay, let me go back. I went too far down the list. He will speak against God. He will harass the people of God. He will try to change the times and the laws. And it says that he will harass them in this period of his power. It will last 3.5 years. In Daniel 8, it says he is mighty in power, but it is not his own power. And we know that it is power that is given to him by Satan. He destroys wonderful things and mighty ones and the people of the holy ones. He has caused deceit to prosper. And I believe it's not just that he is deceitful. It's that deceit abounds everywhere in the world. You guys, we see that already, a lot of it. He magnifies himself and takes a stand against the Prince of Princes. In Daniel 9, we'll be looking at in detail later when we talk about the 7-year period and a covenant. In Daniel 9, it says, the people of the prince who is to come, so it's looking into the future, will destroy the city and the sanctuary. So this is when Jerusalem and the temple is attacked by the Antichrist and his army. It said there shall be war and desolations. And it says that this man will confirm or strengthen a covenant with many. Now, it's popular for people to say he will make a covenant, but the actual wording is he will confirm or strengthen a covenant. So that lets us know that It is possibly a covenant or a treaty that is already in place. And it says he will make a covenant with many. So it does not specifically say with Israel. He's making a treaty with multiple nations, I would assume. Many nations or many people. It's more than one person. And he will corrupt the city and the holy place. There will be destruction until this war is ended. Daniel 11, and this is Daniel 11, 36 through 35. In Daniel 11, the prior part of the chapter is talking about Antiochus. In the Bible, there's a thing called dual prophecy fulfillment, and that means that there are prophecies in the Bible that are fulfilled more than one time. And what's going to happen in the last days with the Antichrist coming against Israel and corrupting the temple has already happened to Israel before. So this is one of those multiple fulfillments of a prophecy. It says he will magnify himself against every god. He will speak astonishing things against the God of gods, and he will be successful until his decreed time is done, which the Bible tells us in multiple places and quite a bit in the book of Revelation, that his time is 3.5 years. That is all the time he has to do what he wants to do. Let's see. He shall pay no attention to the gods of his fathers, or to the one beloved by women. Now, this is the verse where people come up with a conclusion that the Antichrist is gay. And I don't believe that is what it means. I could be wrong. But different versions interpret that different ways. And the version that I have used here, it says that he will pay no attention to the God that is beloved by women, whoever that is. But it's not saying that he is gay. I don't believe. I could be wrong. It says he will have no use for any god, but he will place himself above them all. He shall honor the God of fortresses. I believe in the Hebrew culture that meant he was a god of war. And as we read about all the things that he does in the last days, war is at the top of the list. It also says that a foreign god will help him deal with the strongest fortresses. He will honor those who acknowledge him and make them rulers under him. It says that other kings and countries will attack him. So I believe, and this is probably an uncommon belief that you may not have heard before, but I believe there's a very strong chance that he will not devour and crush the whole world. I believe it will be mostly the region of the Middle East and possibly into Europe. I'm not sure. Because there are many times in the Bible where it speaks in a poetic way of saying that the whole earth will be crushed and the sky is rolled back and all kinds of things happen. When you look at the story about what happened, that's not physically how it happened, but that is the apocalyptic language in Hebrew literature that is used to describe drastic and terrible things. So, and another reason, and I'm going to, one of the documents talks about understanding symbolism in apocalyptic language, and the link to that will be below. And another reason I don't believe that he completely crushes and rules the whole world is because we hear of all kinds of countries and kings coming against him. So there are still kings who are in charge of their country, and they have an army at their command. So that tells us he has not crushed them and is ruling them, or this would not be possible. And we see this quite a bit. It says he will come into the glorious land, and we assume that means Israel. And from the further description of what's happening, that seems to be the case. It says that many will die when he comes into this area and causes war and destruction. But those in, what did it say? Edom and the land of the Ammonites and Moab will be delivered out of his hand, and that is current day Jordan. So he will not conquer Jordan. And some people believe that's because in Revelation it tells us that when the Antichrist goes to make war against Israel and Jerusalem, that is when they will flee to peace and safety. And I believe it's in Revelation 12. It tells us that God will take them to safety. And people believe that it will be to Jordan in the mountains of Petra. So, whatever the reason, Jordan will not be taken over by the Antichrist, and he will not commit war against them. It does tell us, though, that he will win against Egypt, and he will rob Egypt of all her treasures. It then tells us that Ethiopia, Sudan, and Libya will join in with the Antichrist. And then the last verse in that chapter, in chapter 11, it tells us that news from the east and from the north shall alarm him, and he will go out to war against them. So evidently he hears that trouble is coming from the east and the north. And the east would be the Mediterranean Sea, but further east, I believe, is China. Further north, I believe, would be Russia, possibly. Definitely Turkey. But I believe that Turkey will join him as well, and we'll talk more about that later. So there are multiple kings and countries that he does not have charge of that are fighting against him. And so that is all I have right now on the Antichrist. Next, in the next video or two, we're going to talk about who the Antichrist could possibly be. And one thing we're going to consider, I'm going to give you a little taste of it right now. And it is, let me pull that. Hang on, let me pull that. Where is that? Oh, here it is. Those notes. And I will give you a copy of these notes as well. So, a common problem in understanding the Bible is that we don't consider the entire Bible. Most people take a passage and they apply their own understanding to it, and that's what they teach, or they're repeating what someone else has taught them. But the Bible is not a book of stories or quotes that are independent of each other. The Bible is one big continuous story with a very important storyline moving through the whole thing. And when considering the last days, the prophecy, the army, the Antichrist, I think we can understand it best if we look at the whole story. And we're going to go all the way back to Genesis to look at the beginning of where this may have started. And this passage is Genesis 3:15, And it's right after Satan had deceived Adam and Eve in the garden. And this is what God said to Satan: I will put enmity or hatred between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. And then, speaking of the woman's offspring, as in Jesus, he said, he shall bruise your head and you shall bruise his heel. In other words, Satan would do some damage to Jesus, his biting him on the heel, but Jesus will crush Satan's head before this is all over. But the part that I really want you to focus on is God is saying there will be extreme hatred between Satan and his seed and the woman and her seed. And so Satan's seed is, I believe, those who join in with him, who follow him. I believe like the fallen angels and the Nephilim are part of that. But I also believe there is another line that is significantly important in this. So, what if I told you that the kingdom of darkness, which we know is ruled by Satan, has spawned a system or a religion that is an exact mirror copy of God's story, especially when it comes to the gospel and the last days. And it's an exact mirror copy, except there are some terrible perversions of it. So we're going to call this the mystery religion. And this, if you think about it, this is extremely smart for Satan to mimic God in areas like this to confuse people, just like he always has done. So I have a table on this document that you'll be able to look at, and it's 2 columns. And on the right-hand side, left-hand side, it says God's people, and on the other side, it says Satan's copycat. So I'm going to point out some things to you and see if any of it rings a bell. Okay, on God's side of the column, it says Gabriel visited Mary with the news of Jesus and how he would be the Messiah of the world. On Satan's copycat side, Gabriel visits a man with a mission from God on how he is to save the world. Back on God's side, Christianity spread across the globe. The mystery religion spread across the globe, and both of them quickly. On God's side, we're looking for a Messiah to return. On the copycat mystery religion side, they're looking for a Messiah to return. They also happen to be looking for an Antichrist, as are we. They are also looking and expecting a false prophet, just like we are. Our goal is to convert the world to God. Their goal is to convert the world to God. Do you have any idea who the mystery religion is? The mystery religion is Islam. Is anyone surprised? Now I'm going to tell you just a little bit more, and then we'll go into a lot of details that are going to be very revealing, and it will make us want to consider what part does Islam play in these last days story. And after you hear the next video, you'll have a lot more ideas of what could happen. So let me just give you a little bit of information. Okay, as we know, Muhammad the prophet. Now first I want to say, well, I won't tell you that yet. Wait a minute. Okay, Muhammad, in the year 610 A.D., he often visited a mountain cave for solitude. And one time while he was there, the angel Gabriel appeared to him. And this happened multiple times. And Gabriel was trying to talk Muhammad into completing a mission for God. And here's what, and this comes straight out of the Quran. And then the Islamic religion has another book. The Quran is supposed to be everything that God told Gabriel to tell Muhammad. And then the second book is everything that Muhammad taught or did in his behaviors during his lifetime. So here is what Gabriel said to Muhammad. O Muhammad, you are the apostle of Allah, and I am Gabriel. And Muhammad raised his head towards heaven to see who was speaking. And Gabriel, in the form of a man, stood there with his feet outstretched across the horizon. And he said again, O Muhammad, you are the apostle of Allah, and I am Gabriel. And Muhammad gazed at him, moving neither forward or backward, and then he began to turn his face away, and everywhere he turned his head, there was Gabriel staring at him. And Muhammad ran home terrified. He thought he was seeing a demon. He was tormented and went home. He had nightmares. He had convulsions. He decided to go back to the mountain and commit suicide and throw himself off because he thought he was demon-possessed. And when he got to the mountain, Gabriel appeared again and kept telling him, Muhammad, you have been called by God to reach the people and bring them to him. And this happened multiple times. This is all in Islamic writings. Multiple times, Muhammad went back to the mountain to commit suicide, and every time, Gabriel stopped him. And finally, he gave in, and he said, yes, this must be Gabriel. God wants to use me, and I will submit to him. And there are other strange things that happened to him that give indication that he was indeed demon-possessed. And we know that was not Gabriel. I believe that it could have either been a fallen divine being or a demon, or it could have possibly been Satan himself. Because after that, the rest is history. The Islamic religion exploded and caused a lot of damage. That's what the Crusades were about. The Islamic religion had spread and conquered many, many countries that used to be Christian and are now Islamic. And the Crusades was trying to take back some of that land. So, and we also know that the name Allah was a pagan god, a god of the moon. But the Islamic people insist that Allah is the same God as the God of Abraham. As a matter of fact, they claim large parts of the Bible. Large parts of the Bible are part of their Bible and their religion. And you're going to find out they have some shocking ideas about Jesus and how good he is and what we have in common about Jesus. And we'll talk about that next time. But their last days, one of the most important things, they have a list of their most important things for their theology. The very first thing is that Allah is God. And the second most important thing to them is the last days and what happens when their Messiah comes. And it is, they are waiting for those days. Everything is about that moment. And their last days theology is to convince us that our interpretation of the Bible is wrong. And there are some very surprising things that I'll tell you about next time. So Islam is a religion spawned by Satan. And the greatest characteristic of Islam is their hatred of Jews and the Christians. They hate the people of God. And we're going to find out that that goes way back, all the way to the beginning of the Arab nation. And that beginning is with Abraham's son Ishmael. And you may already know part of that story. But all the things that we've talked about just today, this alone should cause us to consider that Islam is going to play an important part in the last days. And so that's all I'm going to cover in this video. There is a lot of very important information coming in the next one. And I do want to say that this is, a lot of it is alarming. Like, there's one fact that I missed. They, in the last days, whenever they try to convince people to come to their side, if you don't convert, they chop off your head. Well, guess where we hear that? In the book of Revelation, the Antichrist will chop off the heads of people who don't take the mark of the beast and who don't follow him. So we're going to go into a lot of details. We're also going to look at if possibly the Antichrist is a Jew, or if the Antichrist comes from the revived Roman Empire in Europe. So we're going to look at all of these possibilities, but we're going to look at the things that I have never heard before. I have always heard the possibility of him being a European or a Jew, but I've heard people say he could be Islamic, but I always dismissed it because I've always heard that there's no way he could be Islamic because the Jews will never accept a Muslim as their Antichrist. But then I found out just recently the Bible doesn't say they're going to accept the Antichrist as their Messiah. So that is not in the scriptures at all. So that opens up the possibility that in addition to being a European or a Jew, the Antichrist could be Islamic. So we're going to pursue that further, and then we'll also look at the other possibilities. And I do want to say a lot of this can be alarming, but we're also going to do a session on all the things in the Bible that tells how God will keep his people. And I know a lot of people believe that the pre-trib rapture is going to remove us before things get bad. But the problem is, we're still here and things are really bad in a lot of places. You know, things are looking real bad in the United States, but we have been sheltered from a lot of this because in the past, we were considered a godly nation. We put God first, but that is changing quickly. Unless there is a last-minute change, we are in a lot of trouble because of turning our backs on being a godly nation. But you guys, other countries are having a terrible time. First off, there are many countries where Christians are being slaughtered. And how do you think they feel about the fact that they were told that the rapture would happen before they would have their heads cut off and be slaughtered? And now they're being slaughtered. So we need to kind of rethink some of these things we've been teaching and believing, because really bad times are here right now in Great Britain and Europe and Finland, and basically Europe is being taken over by illegal Islamic immigrants. Right now in England, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are being put in jail for 2 to 3 years for making a Facebook post that speaks negatively of the illegal immigrants. I am not joking. I know you're probably not seeing this on the mainstream news media, but the mainstream news does not cover the reality of what is resulting as a part of this global stuff that is sweeping the earth. And you won't see it, but I am telling you, terrible things are happening. People are being attacked by machete in downtown European cities. So things are bad already, and we're still here. So we need to be prepared for the fact that all of this chaos could possibly reach America. So we need to learn what the Bible says about God keeping us. We need to get serious about living for God and not playing and straddling the fence, because people straddling the fence cannot count on God's protection, and we're going to need it. So, and I did just post a short video on Facebook. It's not on YouTube, but it's something that the Lord gave me this morning, addressing the fear of what is coming and how we should not be afraid. So be sure and look on my Facebook wall if you are friends with me on Facebook, and watch that video. I think it's entitled Encouragement of some kind, encouragement in the last days, I'm not sure. But do not be afraid. I do believe that we will be removed before things get really bad. We will not see the judgment from God in one way or another. We will not be part of God's wrath on this earth. And I believe that if we put our trust in Him, that even if we go through some really difficult things, He will be with us. And we're going to talk about that as well. So I will see you in the next video, and we will be talking more about the Antichrist, and then we will start going into the tribulation and some things like that. So, and the rapture and stuff like that. So I love you, and thank you for watching.